Hello and welcome to another scrapbooking process video. Today I'm going to be creating another layout using the MercyTiara kits. You can find these kits at MercyTiaraKits.com. I'm using the Feeling Groovy kit and the embellishment add-on, and I'm going to be scrapbooking this photo of my sister-in-law and myself in our scrapbooking kit warehouse in the basement, which is where all of the magic happens. She came over to help me kit up our debut kit, and we had a lot of fun that day. She helped with making flare badges, and she helped with putting together some kits, and just lots of fun times in between there. So I wanted to make sure that I captured the memories of the day. And the reason I'm hesitating here is that I'm actually asking my tiaras for some advice here. So I do a live stream monthly with my Patreons. My patrons are called Tiaras, and we have a live stream once a month. And during that, this is the footage from one of those. And during that, sometimes I ask for their feedback. So I was trying to decide if I was going to layer that frame and leave the photo intact and just kind of use the frame as a layer, or if I was going to trim down my photo to fit perfectly inside of my frame. And the tiaras have spoken, and they told me to use it as a frame and trim the photo. So that's what I did. This background paper, oh my gosh, this is one of my favorites in the kit. I keep on saying that, I know, but it really is one of my favorites in the kit. They're all my favorites. I am having a lot of regret over not getting the extra paper add-on because I love both sides of all of these papers. So I am trying to decide what I'm going to do here. I definitely want the photo to be over here on the right-hand side, sort of like it's riding down the rainbow. And I have a couple of titles left here. So I have the one that says hello, and I'm thinking I might use that. It's a little big, and a lot of my recent layouts have used these sorts of titles. So I'm inclined to actually not use that one. These foam stickers, the frame was one of them, and then this radio is another. These were in the embellishment add-on, and they're from Jen Hadfield's Flower Child collection, and they're adorable. So I did powder the back of that just with a powder tool that you can use for embossing to keep the embossing powder from being all staticky and sticking everywhere. So I use that a lot of the times to de-stick my stickers. So it just has a talcum powder in it, and you just kind of brush the back of your sticker with it, and it puts powder on it to make the sticker not sticky anymore. So you saw me put a mark on the edges of that frame so that I could know exactly where that radio would overlap with the frame. And then I just used my X-Acto knife to just very gently cut through the frame. So now I have a little chunk out of my frame that I can layer the radio perfectly with the frame and almost use the radio as like an inset for the frame. And when I do so, if I just place it down, you're going to see the rough edge on the frame. So what I'm doing is I'm actually placing it down and pushing it in so that the little white line around the radio overlaps with the wood of the frame, and that keeps it from showing. And I used some Tombow Mono Multi adhesive there because it's super strong glue, and it'll keep that in place even though there's a teensy bit of pressure, because the two foams, the foam from the the wood grain frame and the foam from the radio will be kind of pressing against each other. So I didn't want it to use any wimpy adhesive in this type of situation. So I love how Jen and I are just riding down one of the rays of the rainbow there. And now I just have to choose some embellishments. And this is the fun part, right? I'm thinking about potentially using happy as part of my title. But what I've decided to do instead is I'm going to call this just kitting. There were a lot of puns happening that day as we talked about kitting. And so just kidding is what I'm going to go with for this one. I'm going to outline these rays because I don't know what you call the parts of a rainbow, but I'm outlining them because I love outlining things. And so this is a thing. So we'll outline it. We're going to that just gives some definition, and just it makes the background paper just a little bit more substantial, hold up against all of the things that I'm going to put on it. So these floral die cuts are, they're to die for. And my first thought was that I'd cluster a bunch of them and put the title underneath of them, or I mean on top of them, so that it would look like there were flowers coming out from around my title. I'm going to spell out my title, and surprisingly, I mean, I've used these letters for so many things. Every layout so far, I've used these letters on. These are the Vicki Boutin Where to Next thickers, and they came in the kit. And I don't have another T. I ran out of T's. So I was thinking about what I could do, and I didn't even see that the J is really similar to the T. What I did here first was I took an exclamation point, and then I took the top of a 7, and I thought maybe I can make that into a T. And you know what? That wouldn't be too bad. But then somebody who was watching pointed out that the J looks very close to a T. So then I thought, then some people were suggesting like kidding around as a title, or I forget what the other title was. It was something about like we are just kidding. I can't remember, but it wasn't with the word just. So anyhow, then somebody said, use the J. So I grabbed the J and realized, yes, that looks much, much better. I trimmed it out, and then I'm just using my white gel pen to add a little bit of a white border around the cut part, because otherwise it just goes right off the edge and it looks very obvious, like you've kind of hacked it up. And so I also switched it around so that that T was in the word just, so that it wasn't right beside another T, so it's not so obvious that I modified a letter in order to make that second T. So this is where I think, and so now I'm also going to add the black outlining just to make that look finished off. So there you go. It looks pretty good, I think. And the font is kind of a jotty type of font, so it looks okay that it's not perfect. And I like how just and kidding is going to fit perfectly nestled with the photo, so that kidding is going to end right where that radio die cut begins, and they'll be justified over on the left-hand side. So that I really like. Now I saw this sticker. When you're taking your stickers off of these foam sheets, be very careful, because they're cardstock, like a printed cardstock, layered on top of foam. And if you bend the foam, the cardstock will crease. So just be very careful. I'm always cautious to just pull back the backing and try to keep the sticker itself as flat as possible. So now I'm ready to commit to placement for my photo. So before I stick it down, I actually am going to use my T-ruler. I try to not be too fussy about making things perfect, but I do have my T-ruler handy, so it's easy enough to line that up so it's not too crooked. It doesn't need to be perfect. I just don't want it to be like obviously off kilter for this particular. Sometimes I like off kilter. My last layout, for example, I put the photo specifically on an angle. So now let's start adhering these letters. So these are thickers, they're chipboard thickers, and so they are famous for not sticking on the page. But what I have interestingly found with these Vicki Boutin Where to Next thickers is that they actually have been sticking to my pages without me adding any extra adhesive. I will let you know if that changes. But they do seem pretty well stuck to my pages so far. So I'm just going with it, and I'm going to not put extra glue on these. But if you're worried about it and really don't want to, for me, I don't care. Like if they come undone, I'll just fix them. But if you really don't want to do that, then it's not a bad idea to add a little bit of liquid adhesive to these chipboard letter stickers whenever you use chipboard thickers. And that goes for the chipboard letter thickers as well as the chipboard embellishment thickers. The foam, on the other hand, they tend to stick really, really well, so you don't have to worry about adhesive with those. Now, I had this idea that I knew that the page needed just something else, and I had this idea for that floral paper that I'll tell you in a minute. I don't think I had the idea yet, so I won't share it with you yet. But I do want to use that green paper and that green floral, and I'll get to an idea with that in a minute. So first, I love, love, love those Jen Hadfield Flower Child floral embellishments. So I'm going to, there's a spoiler. So I'm going to put a cloud. I'm going to put 3 clouds in the sky, and they're going to be floral clouds. And one of my patrons thought that that was a fantastic idea. So I have these I have these cloud dies from Lawn Fawn. They're called Puffy Clouds. And they're a little small, but that's okay. What I think I'm going to do is I'm looking for some white cardstock, because what I thought I'd do is cut these out of white cardstock and then trace them so that they're just a little bit bigger than the actual dies, and then hand cut them. So, this is an extra step. It might be going above and beyond. Maybe you could have just traced the dies. I don't know. I just wanted to do this, so this is what I did. So now I have these 3 white clouds that I'd like to trace in these papers, and I'm just selecting different clumps of flowers that I'd like to show up in my clouds. This was really fun. So I'm just tracing maybe about 1/4 of an inch around the outside of where that cloud was. And I'm just using my Cutter Bee scissors from EK Success, and I am just cutting around, following the lines, and I'm actually cutting a little bit inside of my pencil line so that I don't have to erase. And now I'm looking for my proper white pen. This is my white Sakura Jelly Roll 10 pen, and I also have a Jelly Roll 8, and that was the first white pen that you saw there, but the 8 is not as thick of a line, and I really love this Jelly Roll 10 pen. It's perfect. So even though it's a fairly broad tip and it does put down quite a bit of this this gel ink, I'm still going over it a couple of times just to make it even more thick of a line. Now I am going to simply die cut this piece because it's the right size, I think. So I made one that was bigger than these Lawn Fawn dies, and then one, so the biggest die ends up being the middle cloud in this case. So I'll outline it as well. And I'm just going back and forth to get a really nice thick line. And that ink doesn't dry right away, so you have to give it a minute or two, maybe not a full minute, but a couple seconds before you start handling it. I'm just selecting some flowers that will, look nice together and look nice with what's already up there. That's a Cuddle Kids cutter that I'm using there. I have it from way back a long time ago when my kids were little. It was the die cut machine that they used to use. And then when they stopped crafting, I adopted it and started using it as my tabletop. I have a big shot that I use. I have it on a Rascog, and I just pull it over when I need to die cut anything big. But as long as it goes through my Cuddle Kids, I'd rather do it right here on my desk so that I don't have to switch my camera angle or anything like that for you to see it. Now, those are pretty weighty clouds because of the dark green background on that floral paper, so I need something to balance it off. So I grabbed a little strip, and I'm going to place this strip behind and under the foam lined strip that I already had there. And now I'm just making it look like a fake torn edge, because that's what the foam sticker has. It has a fake torn edge. And then I'm just going to outline it with the white Jelly Roll 10. And I'll even outline that fake torn edge there as well. And when I add this to the page, what you'll see this does is it just balances off that darker green that shows up in the sky and gives it some grounding. So these die cuts I actually didn't glue down, I just tucked them in, so I'm just adding some adhesive to them now so that they will be permanent. And I really love the whimsical look of these flowers up in the sky. You gotta love a world with floral clouds. I want to live in that world. I'm just going to put them in a little cluster up here in the top part of the sky, and then I'll do my journaling along the edge. I'd love to use these rainbow glasses. They have a holographic outline on them. They're also from the Jen Hadfield Flower Collection. This is a sticker set that came in the, I think it came in the add-on. Thinking about using a few other things here, but no, I really like it just the way it is, so I'm going to leave it. And for these clouds, I want them to look puffy. So what I'm doing is I put staples in the middle of them so that they look like they're stapled to the page. And I like the idea of like stapling clouds into the sky also. It feels kind of whimsical. So I did that. And then I put some Tombow Mono Multi right where the staples are so that where the staple is, it's glued right to the background. But then I put foam adhesive around the outside edges so that the edges will curl up a little bit, and it'll give the clouds a little bit more of a fluffy, airy look, particularly where they are cut from such a dense and darkly colored paper and they're way up in the sky. So that helps them look a little bit airier and more well, cloudy. I'm regretting putting that first cloud where I did. I wish it was over a little bit over to the left and maybe even up a little bit, but it is where it is. And because I use liquid adhesive, I can't really move it very easily. So I'm just going to leave it, and it looks good. I like it anyways. The last second I noticed that bird, and it was a bird in flight. So I thought, let's put the bird up here. And I was gonna outline it, and then I decided, no, nothing else is really outlined here. And then I was gonna outline it with white, and then I thought, no, let's just leave that bird the way it is. I'd love to get a flare badge on this page because Jen helped me make these flare badges. So I think getting a flare badge on the page would be really great, but it felt a little too crowded for the flare badge. So I went with the design and decided to, sometimes I err on the side of the nicer design, and sometimes I say, screw design, this is meaningful, I'm going to put it on the page anyways. But in this case, design one out, and I left it off the page. I like that little gap in there. And what you won't see me do, because I did it off screen, I'm actually going to put some enamel dots. So make sure that you check out the photos at the end. You'll see I put some enamel dots in that little space, and I think they suit the space a little bit better than a flare badge would, because the flare was just a little bit too big. See, there they are right there. There's two in this shot, and then there's two more up in the other corner by the J in just. And I love using enamel dots as in pairs like this with one big and one little. I know we often use them in threes, but there's 3 sets of 2 is how I did it. So just a quick shout out to my Patreon supporters. These folks help make this channel happen, so big thanks to all of them. Patrons get early ad-free access to some of my process videos and real-time unedited versions of my videos, as well as a monthly live stream and some other things. So thanks to them. Let me know if you have any questions or comments, and check out MercyTiaraKits.com if you'd like to buy the Feeling Groovy kit. We do have a few left, so check them out if you want to, and have a really great scrappy week.